machine translation is not by far as helpful in my experience. It's especially because the language isn't as repetitive as in legal translation, for example. It calls for very creative solutions, and there are also what I would call more layers of context. There's the image, the action, the sound. We all know that irony, for example, in the tone of the speaker can change the meaning completely. Word stress is another thing that can completely change the meaning of the whole sentence, and it has to be many times it has to be translated in very different ways depending on the word stress in the sentence. There are gestures and the body language which also modify or add to the meaning. So very often in audiovisual translation, the same simple sentence can have very different meanings depending on the situation, including simple things such as hey or come on. So the human translator has to supply a lot of relevant information. Let me give you an example. Let's take the sentence, did you go to the center yesterday? Meaning going to the city center. When I work into Czech, I have to ask several questions. I have to ask who is being spoken to. In other words, I have to see who the person speaking is looking at. Is it one person or several people? Is it a man or a woman? What's the relationship between the speaker and the other person? In other words, what's the level? What should be the level of politeness? And in some languages, we also have to ask: did the person walk to the center, or did he or she use a vehicle? Also, the stress in the sentence plays a role. Now, I've written down all the different possibilities when working from English into Czech, when translating this sentence, and I've come up with 12 different possibilities, and I only took into account the masculine and feminine. I didn't take into account the neuter. So I have to make a decision on all these questions, while the machine translation, when it has the task of translating this same sentence, only uses whatever seems to be most statistically relevant. It will not be able to ask these questions. So if you look at the screenshot at the slide that I've prepared, first you can see that there are those 12 possibilities. And then in the next one, I've shown outputs from two major machine translation engines. One of them is Google Translate. Of course, it only could choose one of them. It shows the one where the person is going on foot. It's several people, it's men, and it's both formal and informal. E-translation, the EU translation machine translation engine, on the other hand, chose a different approach. It translated the sentence as byl jsi včera v centru, which means were you in the center yesterday? It completely dropped the verb to go and changed it to be. So you can see that machine translation engines cannot ask the same questions that we do.